So this mistake can cost you big time, and the Stihl MS880 is not a saw that you want to happen to. So in today's video, we'll go over just exactly what happened to this poor thing. Welcome back, everyone. Today we got this Stihl MS880, and it showed up with a problem. I've only seen this problem one other time, but it was something that I just wanted to let everybody know, kind of a public service announcement. So customer calls, says he has a really nice shape OEM Stihl MS880, which this was a beautiful saw, and he had a CPI pipe made up for it, and he wanted it ported to match the pipe, just a super strong, big, fun saw. I'm like, yeah, no problem, we can do that for you. So he sends it in, saw shows up, fully assembled, pipe still on and everything. We get it all fueled up, oiled up, so we get it all strapped onto the dyno. Start our baseline runs like we always do. Before and after, the change is all that really matters. So, it's strapped on the dyno, got the D count pushed. He's already got the D handle on there for us. You know, these big saws, hard to crank over. So, got all braced up, ready to pull it, and it doesn't move. Nothing. Locked up tight. I'm like, well, what the heck? You know, maybe he had the coil off, swapped out a coil, something along those lines. So I pulled the recoil off. Go to wiggle the flywheel, no movement, coil still tight. What the heck? So, take the pipe off. When I look in this header that's bolted to the cylinder, I can see a pile of rust sitting on the bottom of this header pipe. Look at the piston, it's close to the bottom of the stroke. Pile of rust sitting on the piston. Go to grab the pipe. And I'm like, what the heck? Go to dump it out, and it just dumps a pile of rust. I've got these split washers in here trying to knock the scale out, but I had a pile of rust probably about the size of those 4 washers that dumped out of this pipe. So what had happened, everything all assembled in shipping. The rust had bounced up the pipe since the piston was down, went into the cylinder, down the transfers, sat in the bottom end. So this mild steel pipe got shipped to him, and it never got ran. So since there was no coating of oil on the inside of this pipe, it rusted and started flaking off on the inside. I don't know exactly how long it sat, but mild steel that was just welded doesn't take very long to oxidize. And, you know, sitting on a shelf waiting for his porting appointment, and then getting here, all that rust had flowed into the bottom end. You know, like I said, it's nobody's fault, but not running that pipe, not getting that coating of oil, or not having the pipe off of the saw to where you can look in there and wiggle it around, listen for things, is what caused this one to need a full rebuild. Luckily, it was lock solid, so it didn't run all the way through the big end of the crank. Didn't tear up the piston, didn't tear up the cylinder. We got really lucky on that. But we did have to split it, clean everything all out, new OEM bearings, OEM seals, cleaned out the crank, that felt good, and we can reuse the piston and cylinder. But I just wanted to let everybody know, I've seen lots of pipes being built, lots of stuff being shipped out. If you're going to build a pipe, make sure you cleaned out, put it on and run it to get a good film of oil, exhaust, carbon, whatever, however hard you want to run it, whatever ends up in there. But get a good coating on the inside of the pipe. And the outside definitely wouldn't hurt. This one you can see rusted up just a little bit. Nowhere near as bad on the outside. It's twice as bad on the inside. I did see this one other time. We had a Johnson Red come in. New old stock, been sitting on the shelf 15-20 years. And the factory muffler rusted and flaked, and same thing. In shipping, all that rust came in, filled the bottom end, locked the saw up. Had we run that one, it would have destroyed the top end too. So if you're checking out new old stock saws to buy, make sure you pull the muffler, because that piston's down at the bottom of the stroke and rust had bounced from the muffler into the cylinder. You're in for a repair bill that you might not be expecting. But while we're on this topic of things, this one was a new max flow that came with it. But we have had quite a few saws show up with a foam filter that doesn't have the oil. So if you're going to run a foam filter, make sure you oil it up good, make sure everything's sealed up good. Otherwise, this foam is not going to filter like it's supposed to. Let a lot of fines pass through and it'll tear up your piston cylinder before too long. So make sure you oil your filters, and make sure you oil the inside of your pipe or run them. And if you ever question it, pull the muffler off, look at something. But like I said, I was really surprised to see how much stuff came out of this pipe. So before we actually bolt this pipe back on, I'm going to cut it open to make sure it's fully clean on the inside. We'll re-weld it back up, just because we don't want any of those particles tearing up our soon-to-be freshly ported 880. But like I said, that's 2 times I've seen rust inside the bottom end just from sitting. So if the saws sit around in the garage for a while, it could happen. But if you do get an expansion chamber, make sure you oil it up really good before the first run. Make sure you run it, and just don't let them sit, because bare steel does rust. So it's not really anybody's problem. It's just one of those things that happens that just kind of don't think about. I know myself, I start a project and it can sit for 2, 4, 6 months before it finally gets finished up. So this is definitely something that I've been looking out for. But oil up your pipes, oil up your filters, and hopefully this helps somebody prevent a full rebuild in the future. All right, thanks a lot, everyone.